Let's freaking go. I have so much to get to, not a lot of time. It is a glorious Sunday after what was an absolutely wild spring game. So we did a live stream last night. We also did a 1+ hour film study. So if you are listening to this on, let's say, a podcast down the road, please go check it out. We will have part two, hopefully released tomorrow. And as you guys know, the film studies do take a while, but just to stay on schedule, we are doing a live stream pretty much every Sunday up until the season. So I want to talk about Kyron Lacy to start things off. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk about the secondary. That has been the biggest thing is you guys letting me know that you are very concerned about DBU. And I think a lot of you are appreciating a little bit more what Jared Bernard Converse and Mekhi Gardner were able to do as first-year players. And maybe, just maybe, you can't always just go to the transfer portal and hope to find guys to come in and save the day. So you see the poll question: attach offense, defense. Which one do you feel is the bigger concern for you? Now, let's have a conversation here about Kyron Lacy. I think there is a small storyline and a larger storyline with Kyron Lacy to discuss. Starting off here with the immediate. Last year, he had by far the worst spring game of the receivers, caught one pass on 9 targets. Okay, so he missed 8 targets last year. Not all of them were his fault. And yesterday, he hit on 5 of his 6 targets, including probably the greatest single catch we have seen in the spring game from any receiver, and the greatest run after the catch we arguably have ever seen from any receiver in a spring game. So it has been a mixed bag for Kyron Lacy. I think a lot of you remember the Texas A&M game, but he looked really good yesterday. Remember, he was going up against first teamers, broke a tackle of Harold Perkins there at the end, and was still able to pound that sucker into the end zone. This could just be a situation where this guy is actually good. Now, once again, it is just a spring game, and we don't need to get carried away too much. And we do have Skipper giving us our first super chat of the evening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Skipper, you get to pick the next topic. You go right on ahead. But let me say something really quickly, and I really do feel this is very important. Kyron Lacy is still no better than the third receiver on this team. Malik Neighbors had a really good spring game. Brian Thomas Jr. had also a really good spring game, as you guys saw from the film study. Kyron just had the best game for that day. But it would not shock me next year that there could be a Kyron Lacy game or two. Now, we have not seen Aaron Anderson. We have not seen Shelton Sampson. But what I will also say, we did not see Mac Markway yesterday, a tight end who has had a lot of injury issues over the past couple of years in high school and now here at LSU. The only tight end we saw yesterday on scholarship was Jackson McGohan. So we'll see what happens. Mason Taylor might end up being that number 3 guy, even though he is a tight end, so not really a receiver. But, you know, Kamarion Pimpton's a guy that I'm really high on coming in next year. But as of right now, it is just so evident that Kyron Lacy is the number 3 wide receiver on this team, and he is going to play a lot next year. But that is just the smaller viewpoint. I think there is a bigger one, and it is very interesting. You look historically at the wide receiver position at LSU, it has mostly been one type of player with 2 characteristics. Okay. The first is all of them are from Louisiana. Okay. Terrence Tolliver is the last non Louisianian to catch 35 plus passes in the LSU offense. Let me repeat: Kyron Lacy, I say Kyron Lacy, Terrence Tolliver is the first, last non-Louisianian to start. I repeat that. Well, I bring this up because American Patriots worried about my voice. Is it strange? Let me get a glass of water. You want to know what's interesting? Funny story. It could just be I'm tired, maybe. Doing the long live stream last night and then putting together an hour-long film study. Um, and I'm going to be honest, I got a little preview cut up for you today from the interviews we did this weekend with Jory Jenkins, Michaela Williams, and Patrick Queen. That's going to be coming up a little bit later. So, yeah, I guess I'm okay. But here's a funny admission. All right. And I'm glad AP brought this up. So, Garrett Nussmeyer did like the Cheez-Its ad, and we were in the Cheez-Its bowl. I am personally not a big fan of Cheez-Its. Like, I think they're fine. Like, if you need to give me a snack, I like Cheez-Its. It's just fine. But if you want a life changer, and this is a free ad, the Cheez-Its Puffs that they just made, okay? They are Cheetos, essentially. Cheetos. They are so good. Like, I ate like half a bag, and I think that's why my voice might sound a little bit different. But I'm fine. Let me know. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. I'll give you the microphone. But no, I am fine. If I sound a little bit different, if I sound a little bit fatigued, it's because I've done a lot in the past 48. But anyway, there is a small and big picture here with Kyron Lacy. Okay, the first is it does look as if it is going to be him running that number 3 receiver position. But the bigger story, all right, to me, is Kyron Lacy is a non-high school wide receiver that could be a big person on this unit for them next year. It is crazy to think that there really is one position on this team that has not been aided by the transfer portal, and that is wide receiver. I know why my voice is different. Okay. I don't have the right thing plugged in. Oh, I see exactly why. So that might have fixed it. So I don't know why. You are right. I actually had this plugged in wrong. There we go. So does it sound better? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I was wondering. I was like, I'm kind of glad you said it. So I was importing the interviews with this cord, and I had it plugged in where my board is. So no, I'm glad you actually brought that up. So there you go, because I don't wear headphones because my head's big enough already. But there you go. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I was like, God, my voice that had stuck in the back of my head for a while too. You really had me thrown off. So I was like, God, what is actually? Is there something wrong with this? And I looked and I was like, wait, it's not the board. Good to see you. Nurse Court's in here tonight. I know we got a big live stream lined up then. Let's say hi to quite a few of you. John Sibley's here. BT's in here. Skipper, Sherry Berry, Doug from Pineville. We're chatting cheesesteaks today. Chance wants to talk about Ryan Robinson. Yeah, he had a few plays. Very interesting. Jawan Johnson decommitting from Colorado. Very interesting. I saw him up there for the spring game. And yeah, very interested in his services. So there you go. Now, a few other things here. What's good, though, is Kyron Lacy is living the dream. A 3-star transfer from UL wide receiver who had some brutal spots last year. Big picture is you can do anything at wide receiver. And I am so happy that he had that moment for us to take out of the back of our minds what happened in that Texas A&M game. There's nothing worse than dropping passes and costing your team, because there's something about a drop pass that just sticks in the back of a fan's mind, whereas dropped interceptions arguably are just as big, but we don't keep up with the stat called dropped interceptions. So, yeah, I am very freaking happy for Kyron Lacy. Now, the question attached to this live stream is, was this spring game a fluke? Maybe. Sometimes some players in LSU history, they have huge spring games and they don't turn out to be who that person was in the spring game. There's two very famous examples of this. Obviously, a few years ago when Jontre Kirkland caught 16 passes in a spring game, 16. And he turned out to be a good do-it-all player for LSU, but he wasn't 16 catches in a game good. And then Richard Murphy, many a years ago, a former running back, looked like the next Gale Sayers. So yeah, it is pretty freaking wild that, well, you have these spring games and maybe they do not translate. But Kyron's looked really good. We have seen a strong push on social media from LSU to put up some clips from Kyron Lacy from practice. I'm very happy for him. I am very happy for him. And I can't wait to see what he does next year. Now, let's get into the secondary. All right. So once again, Skipper, I know you wanted to talk secondary. AP, you get to pick a topic. Go right on ahead. And once again, feel free to super chat any one of you. Any questions, spring football related, in this first 30 or so minutes. And then we'll get into some recruiting if you want to. And then we can get into some bigger picture stories, maybe outside the world of LSU football. I made a mistake earlier on Twitter about LSU baseball. I want to get into that a little bit later as well. I know you guys are here to hear me talk about football, but I know a lot of you watched that baseball game earlier. And I also want to chat some LSU women's basketball tonight with Haley Van Lith and my conversation with Michaela Williams. Okay. I want to talk secondary, though. All right. Should you be smashing the panic button with the LSU secondary? Maybe. Let's start with the positives. This was the first time the secondary has had to tackle in a game situation in a while. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is share with you just something anecdotally that I have seen. Okay. When I think of poor tackling performances from LSU, a few games really stick out. Okay. The spring game last year had a bunch of missed tackles. The Florida State game had a bunch of missed tackles. The Kansas State game, bowl game last year, had a ton of missed tackles. I think the UCLA game last year was probably the worst tackling performance I've ever seen from LSU. And you begin to notice a trend. LSU rarely tackles well when there is a period of nothingness. Okay. So maybe that is just a thing. Okay. We didn't struggle versus Purdue, but Purdue didn't play their best players. They all opted out. So I think you give the secondary some leniency there, because tackling in the secondary is tougher than in the front seven portion of the defense. It just is. There's just more open space to tackle. Also, we had a bunch of players slip. I saw a few of you mention this. Denver Harris slipped a lot. He slipped on the Malik Neighbors RPO that you guys saw in the film study. And on tomorrow night's film study, we're going to try and finish part 2 and get it out tomorrow night, roughly around 8:15 or so. I'll be on AYS tomorrow at 7:30 as well. We'll see. We'll discuss some of Denver Harris's slips, including the Landen Ibieta play. But it still doesn't excuse the overall poor performance from the LSU secondary. It was rough. And there's just no other way to sugarcoat it. It was just not good. And, while I do think the time off does lead to bad tackling, once again, excuses are just excuses, right? It's a little bit different if this was just Arkansas or if we were just, some other school. We're DBU. There's a standard to be met to play in the LSU secondary. And I think part of the problem was a lot of the missed tackles were from more experienced players, okay? And, Sage Ryan missed a lot. I think I counted 4.5 to 5 missed tackles from Sage. He was playing a new position. He was playing the traditional safety. It was tough. It was really, really, really tough. Okay. Missed you last night. Grandbaby had first birthday party and wait, hold on just a second. A grandbaby had an after party? Oh man. Oh, God, that's crazy. I didn't know I didn't even know you're starting about 1 with after parties. That's just crazy, if you ask me. Now, Denver Harris had a rough game. Sage Ryan had a rough game. J.K. Johnson had a rough game. Okay. Those are just a few, but there was quite a few that had rough games. Secondaries, for the most part, tough outing. But let's talk about some positives. Javian Toviano looks really good. Let's call a spade a spade. It looks really good. Okay. I like him. I like them coming out. We have done a lot of Toviano content. I think he was properly rated. He looks like a top 100 player. He does, with potential to potentially one day become a 5-star or beyond level contributor for LSU moving forward. He's physical. And the one thing I like is, even when you're not making a big play, I just like to see your body language. I just like to see the way you play the game. There was a play in the film study from earlier where he just finished a tackle tough. I like seeing that. I do. So good game from Toviano in the secondary. And with Terrence Welsh had a really freaking good outing. Good for him to get one under his belt. Okay. So does he get more serious looks as a potential starter for LSU? We shall see. But those two had really good outings. Okay. Now, we are starting to wonder, can Deuce Chestnut come in and save the day? I think outside corner is a very real question mark on this team right now. And it's going to be tough to see how that actually gets filled going into next year. But as of right now, I think you should feel fine for a few reasons. Number one, the portal is still there. We still got 7 days left in this thing. Maybe, just maybe, they can go get another DB. But what I would say is at least go try and get someone else. Just get another body in there. One final name that I will chat about, and I've heard differentiating opinions more so because of where he came from than who he actually is. I would like to see Zy Alexander get a real shot. He played fine in the spring game. He wasn't, like eye-poppingly great like a few other DBs were, but a good play on BTJ in the red zone portion early on. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see with him. He looks like a Division I DB though. He does. Now, we shall see how we move on as a secondary. Let's see here. Nurse Court is high on Chestnut, Sawyer. He liked all three of the Jack linebacker edge players. I thought Ovi did have a really good game. I think the issue with this Sawyer, though, is, we had two Division I Power 5 level tackles playing yesterday. So, yeah, I thought Will and Emery had good days. I thought Emory Jones had a really good day. Will wasn't his absolute sharpest, but he was still very, very good. And yeah, but I do agree the Jacks looked pretty solid. They did. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, last thing on the secondary. You do worry a lot about the Florida State game, but I'll keep making this point over and over and over again. The state of the quarterbacks in the SEC is not going to be as good as it was last year. And that's a good thing if you're LSU. So, having a not so great secondary might not be as bad as it would be in years past when there was just better quarterbacks from top to bottom. So, there you go. Now, a few other things as far as the spring game is concerned. I want to go through a few more positives and negatives. And this will probably be a short form video tomorrow. Let's take a bow and tip our cap to a guy who came in here with a lot of hype. You give him the single-digit number. And you not only give him the single-digit number, you give him the most coveted single-digit number. And that is our guy, Omar Speights. And I say our guy. I've never met him. I'd love to. What a game. What a game. Okay. He did everything. He crashed the line of scrimmage, squeezed down some good run plays. He guarded running backs out of the backfield, man-to-man coverage. He also, by the way, was the maestro of an overall good front seven defensive outing in stopping the run. And by the way, who better than a 5-year starter to play alongside someone who is truly playing the off-ball linebacker position for the first time in his career solely, and that is Harold Perkins. Give Omar Speights a lot of credit for coming in and living up to the billing. He's huge. And he might be the key and the missing piece for LSU to go to the national championship game this year. He was really that good. I mean, it was every time I looked up, he was doing good things. So let's give Omar his flowers for this spring game. Now, after that, we shall see what happens. The Weeks brothers, I thought, looked fine, but LSU's linebacker depth is not at its deepest, but the first two look to be pretty much the first two. Now, what's going to radically change is the defensive line moving forward, as Jacobian Guillory and Paris Shand will probably not be your starters next year. It is going to be Wingo. It is going to be Mason Smith. And Jordan Jefferson likely is going to be a part of that rotation as well. Now, there are more than just those people, but that is what it's looking like for LSU's defensive line. I think the pass rush from the defensive line position was average in this game. Very average. You're going up against good tackles. I thought we would have generated a little bit more interior pressure on the first team line. They did a good job. I thought Brad Davis did a really good job coaching up this group and getting them ready to go up, against a team that they've obviously gone up every day in practice. So let's give that front seven a game ball here. You could have gotten more pass rush, true, but the run stopping was really solid. Okay. Now let's go to Jared's super chat. Jared's normally a sit back and relax kind of guy, but he did have, the 1-year-old birthday party. And it was his grandson. That would be weird if it was just some random 1-year-old. You didn't get to finish film today, so did the secondary make our QBs appear better than we thought we saw? So obviously we're going to go through more of Garrett's snaps tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Ricky Collins' snaps tomorrow as well. But I understand that there was some disagreement in the chat after a not so great start in the red zone portion. Jaden was good. He was good. And I just love seeing him go through progressions. He did a really good job in that aspect. And that shows improvement. Okay. There's a CB that surprised you. I can't think of his name. I come see it, please ask my mom. But Jaden's progressions were better. I'm going to tell you this, and it's perfectly fine. The progressing aspect of the quarterback position is not a big deal at the collegiate level for Jaden. It's just got to be good, right? It doesn't need to be spectacular because there are other aspects of football where he is truly spectacular. But his progressing, I felt like it's not going to be like Bryce Young, where if you watch Bryce Young play, his head is like just snapping like a machine. It's bop, bop, bop. With the Jaden, it is a little bit more of a, it's just not as quick. But yesterday, he still went through them, and that was a step forward in the right direction. Because what teams are going to do to Jaden Daniels this next year, if they are smart, is they're just not going to rush him. They are going to do what Alabama did to Jordan Jefferson in the national championship game back in 2012. They're just going to stay in their pass rush lanes and force you to beat them from the pocket. That's it. Okay. You want to blitz Jaden Daniels? Good luck. Leave our receivers in man-to-man on the back end all you want. You're going to get aggressive in your pass rush lane integrity versus Jaden Daniels? Be our guest. I'll gladly take 15 yard chunk runs at will, which is what Jaden did to almost everyone last year. But the LSU defense said, look, we're not going to let Jaden run. We are going to force him to sit in the pocket, and he made some really good throws. There was a disagreement on the throw to Kyron Lacy, and Kyron made a really difficult catch. It was a high ball, but this is very important, okay? The NFL is different than the college level. You need to be more lenient with quarterbacks that actually do progressions, okay? So on that throw to Kyron Lacy, he had to look to the double move to Malik Neighbors that wasn't there. They had it defended. Then he had to work back to the right with an underneath linebacker, and he had to make sure that the ball got over Harold Perkins' head after going through the progression, the ball might not be right on the numbers there, but as someone who watched a lot of Jaden's throws last year, when he really had to go through things, the ball would tend to wobble. The ball to Kyron Lacy did not wobble. It was a laser. And number two, I don't mind if that ball is a little high, if that underneath defender is there. Now, you can't sail it because that could be a pick to the safety at the third level of the defense. But the throw to Kyron was really good. The throw to Malik was even better, where he didn't have to jump for it. And what I look for is, number one, is that ball a rope? And number two, is are you getting that ball going like this, right? And we saw that. We saw that a few times with Jaden in this game. It looked better. It looked a lot better. I did not expect it to look as good as that, right? So I give Jaden a lot of credit. And obviously, there's quite a few that are still going to be very skeptical of his deep throwing ability and his willingness to throw it. He did miss Chris on the early shot down the left side. Guys, it was good. It was good. Now, was it great? No, the red zone portion was a mixed bag, but it was still good. It was still good, and it was an improvement. So I give Jaden that. I do. And he's bigger. So yeah. But here's the truth. The one thing we know about Jaden is he looks amazing in games that are lower stakes, right? In terms of actually throwing the football. Spring game is not a high stakes situation. The non-Power 5 games where he did a lot of these progression kind of things, it looked really good, right? One of the best throws of the season was the deep ball to Jure versus Florida, low leverage situation because it was a clear offsides penalty. So no harm, no foul. What we want to see next year is Jaden doing these things when the game is still in the balance. And we saw it versus Alabama in that fourth quarter. We saw in some other portions, but are we going to see this versus Florida State early on? So I liked what I saw from Jaden. I liked what I saw from Garrett Nussmeier. But I'm going to keep saying this. It is just a spring game. So there you go. See here. I was Ricky Collins down in a red jersey. I got Branson's got it for you right here. So BK talked about this. The likelihood, number one, that a quarterback is going to get hurt in the spring game is very small, and number two, that was some, like Branson says and like BK says, that was some real good game action for him. So there you go. So what about the dig routes? Yeah, throwing the deep dig is difficult. I spoke to an OC about it not too long ago. I'm starting to use the app WhatsApp more often, and I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else to WhatsApp other than it's just messaging, but kind of like it. And he told me that one of the most intercepted passes he has ever charted. Well, actually, no, you just said it's the most intercepted pass that he's ever charted was a dig. And I get it, right? It's a deep crossing route. Okay. It's going to get intercepted from time to time. So, yeah, digs are tough. Jaden missed a few of them last year, but hopefully we get better throwing those digs. Okay. Are you a WhatsApp user as well? Huh? That's cool. Here's a good question from Nathan. Good to hear you. Good to hear from you again. Look at you and the misses after the Alabama game. I'm kind of shocked you risked it because there was a lot of people storming the field. You're like, yeah, let's sit here. Let's sit here while chaos is happening. Where do I think LSU starts out in the top 25 week 1? Georgia will be ranked higher for sure. Alabama, because they're Bama, will be ranked higher than us. Ohio State will be ranked higher than us. Michigan will be ranked higher than us. And then after that, I could see 5, 6, 7. I could see Florida State being ranked in that range as well. So there you go. Now, here's what we're going to do. It did not feel that was just 35 minutes of that. That really felt like a blink of the eye. Time flies when you're having fun. So, type Y for yes. Type N for no. Would you like a preview from our interviews yesterday with one athlete who helped LSU win a national championship? Type Y for yes, type N for no if you would love some preview action. Let's see. Everybody, welcome Saint Cyr to the channel. What is this? A goat? Is that a goat biting a pew? I don't know. So here we go. Show some love for Troy Jenkins. Stick with 83.
Nah, I was ready to get out of it.
But why is that a thing? Why is a lower digit number a thing?
I don't know. It just is. I don't know. I just always, I never wore a big number. I never went past, I think in high school, matter of fact, growing up, I never went past 11. So growing up, I was always 2 or number 7. But then in high school, I got number 11. That's how I ever went. And then I got here, my first year LSU, they text me, asked me what number I want. And then at the time, 16 was the lowest. So I want number 16. And then obviously they said something about quarterback getting, so I had to go to 83. I didn't really like it.
It weighs you down. You admit it. It weighs you down. You lose that 1/10 of a second of a 40-yard dash. So what I want to do, what I loved about you wasn't just the fact that you were doubted. You were. I just want that to be clear because everyone says they got doubted. You really had doubters. But you were the best in the fourth quarter. Why?
I don't know. It just was like I just knew eventually I was staying ready. I never let the moment and everything, anything get to me. I was always calm and everything. And I feel like that helped with just experiences of just obviously being there. And like I said, I was just, waiting for my moment. I knew if the ball was coming to me in this fourth quarter, I knew that I was going to make a play about it. I knew I was going to catch it and I was going to score with it. And
Roger Dodger was the co-producer of that interview. I really appreciate your help on all the interviews. He was the one that was actually making sure the camera was rolling. So I appreciate that, Roger Dodger. So there you go, Dre Jenkins. And what I'll do is I'm going to try and get one of the interviews posted by Wednesday. It'll more than likely be the Patrick Queen one. And obviously Thursday being the draft, I'm going to wait to post the Dre Jenkins interview. I'm going to wait till his actual team is announced. So let's aim for Wednesday night. We'll do the Patrick Queen interview. We're going to wait until I'm going to aim next Monday night for the Dre Jenkins interview. And then because women's basketball is still so far away and it's not as time, it's a little bit more time. What is it? Evergreen. The Michaela Williams interview was so good. So that'll be coming up here on PHL. I freaking love talking to each and every one of them. there was something. So I did some research on Michaela Williams. There was a video I saw that I have never seen a 5-star recruit ever do, and it's going to blow your mind. I unearthed it. It was one of the most humbling things I have ever seen. And I talked to Michaela Williams' dad for like an hour. He was awesome. So I'm going to do the same thing I said last night about her father. Super dad's a PHL. You better step it up. You better. But as Tyler points out, so Tyler was there yesterday for all the interviews, and yeah, we had a good time. We had a really good time. But it was cool. I mean, look, how many times are you going to be in the orbit of a national championship MVP? You know, it doesn't happen that much. But yes, Roger, thank you so much for coming in and helping produce this content. I couldn't have done it without you, quite literally, because I didn't sleep the night before. Because you got to bring all these cards, you got to get the giveaways. As Roger saw, we gave a ton of cards away. If a kid walked by, the kid got cards. So there you go. Good to see a bunch of PHLers in the building. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So while we move on, here's a little medley of photos from yesterday. There's a guy that put it together. You've seen him a bunch on here, Ty. So let's do this. Carter, what I was trying to ask you last night, your thoughts on players entering the portal twice in 3 months. Storm Duck went from NC to Penn State back into the portal in 3 months. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about this portal stuff, AP. I think personally, the transfer portal is a major net positive. I don't care if a player wants to get in there as many times as he possibly could. You can also say it's not a good look if you are always jumping from place to place. Sometimes it is you, okay? It is you. You're the problem. It's not the scheme fit. It's not, the players surrounding you. It's not any of those things. It's you, okay, that needs to get your act together. So, yeah, I think the portal has done a lot of good. I also think, sometimes more often than not, what players tend to think is now with the portal, it gives them a more reasonable excuse to excuse why it's not working out at the first stop. Okay. Now, there are some portal instances where a player quite literally is good. They are just transferring to a program with a bigger reach. Okay. So obviously, Jarek Bernard Converse is that guy last year. He was all Big 12 at Oklahoma State. The same thing is true with Spates, Omar Spates, who we talked about a lot. He's a guy that was really good at Oregon State. Could have stayed there another year and then got drafted, but he just wanted to go somewhere else to a bigger orbit. But more often than not, a player just, they don't have the juice, right? And, I just think for me, like when I watch college players, I look for little things. Sometimes and I'm a little bit more direct with my evaluations on Patreon. So I really do believe you should join patreon.com/LSU football. And there you can see my grades on all prospects. And I have a model and a rubric, and I go through a bunch of different things. And your raw recruiting ranking is a big thing, because recruiting rankings more often than not tell whether or not you're a good player. But it's not the only thing, and sometimes it can be a little misleading. So, I'm going to give you my thoughts on a player who made his public debut yesterday. But if you've watched live streams, when he initially committed to where we are now, yesterday I felt confirmed my priors on Kyle Parker. Now, he didn't have just this spectacular day, but I looked at some of his jumps off the line of scrimmage. It seemed as if he plays fast. Something else I really liked about Kyle Parker was he was younger for his age in high school. So he's still growing as well. All right. And, Roger, he rode with me back and forth from Shreveport, and we talked about, the age stuff, right? Hey, there's Roger again right there. Man, yeah, we had a good time. It was at these card shows, it is 0 to 100 really quickly. But yeah, man, like Kyle Parker just looks like he is a big time Division I college football wide receiver. And once again, it gets difficult when you do this because a lot of people do their own high school player evaluations. And you don't want to be doing something called confirming your priors. You don't just want, confirmation bias because you said that you thought this guy was going to be good. So yeah, there you go. Thank you so much, Babs. That's a baby.
I'm gonna give it time to go to bed, baby. We didn't get any sleep last night because the baby was acting up.
The baby was acting up.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna go to bed early. Okay.
I dropped the water.
All right, love you.
Thank you. Pierce, we were just talking about you. Pierce was there yesterday as well. Because if there's a PHO meetup, Pierce is going to be there. By the way, I will say this. Pierce is currently leading everybody when it comes to PHO meetups. Okay? Now, truth be told, I rewarded Pierce with some Pokemon cards of his choice. Yes, I don't know anything about Pokemon cards, but like I would think a Blastoise would be more valuable than a Charizard because Blastoise is water and Charizard is fire. Give me Blastoise all day. Give me Mewtwo all day over Charizard. Give what is Jigglypuff? But yeah, we had a good time. Tyler, did you not see Pierce yesterday? Oh God, how did that not happen? Oh man, I love Tyler's kid. He's got the PHL shirt on. Oh man. So yeah, I saw this today, Craig. I'm sorry, I'm not the LSU baseball expert. I just am not. But I did see that Tommy Tanks, one of LSU's best baseball players, did get banged up. So number one, Craig, I don't know how he got hurt, and number two, I don't know the severity of it. Now we do have some LSU baseball experts in here. I think because I was cutting the film study. Like I normally like to watch a few innings every now and then. What is this on the bottom of my shoe? But can anybody give us an update here on Tommy Tanks? Let me see. Let me see if there's a. Let's see. I don't see anything about Tommy White as far as his injuries are concerned. Okay. But yeah, I hope he's okay. Hope he's okay. I will touch on the LSU baseball game though, because you did bring it up. All right. So they sweep Ole Miss, and this gets into like national championship culture, right? Ole Miss had this unbelievably miraculous run last year to go win the College World Series, and it's worth it. It was their first national championship, but now they're terrible. Okay, goes to show you that college baseball championships are so lucky. Like, you've got to get lucky. So even though LSU baseball looks like they have the best team, even though the pitching isn't truly there, they're going to need a lot of luck. Also, to win with the pinch hitter hitting the home run, I tweeted something at Power Hour LSU about, wait, why are the announcers not more excited that a team down 6-4 a team down 6-4 hit a home run to go up 7-6. And then I learned today that apparently the announcers on the national broadcast are Ole Miss. And I learned that. I was like, what? Still, you're on a national broadcast. At least be excited. Okay? Let's go to Jason. Hey, you don't want to hear me talk baseball, as you can see. But yeah, I'm happy we swept Ole Miss. I'll put it that way. Let's go to Landen Ibieta. I'll gladly talk about Landen Ibieta. I get to break his play down tomorrow night. Pretty excited about that. So Jason and I have been really good friends, I think, for over a year now. We got to hang out at the SEC championship game. I got to meet your son, who's also a big supporter. I really appreciate both of you. It was cool because I was with Jason and Van, two of the biggest supporters of PHL. Really appreciate both of y'all's generosity. You can ask Jason. We had a great time hanging out for, 15, 20 minutes. It was worth it. Absolutely worth it. Let's go to someone who actually guarded Landen Ibieta in high school. I had to try to cover Landen a few times in high school. Not fun. I love it. But yeah, Landen was really good. Okay. So obviously, he's not the biggest guy. So, his game isn't going to be, snagging, jump balls. But he did show some good ability after the catch. Now, a few things went in his favor, and the biggest one was the slippage from Denver Harris. Now, what I will say is there were a few players yesterday for LSU who just slipped, but I think Denver Harris slipped more than anybody. He slipped on the Malik Neighbors dig, and he also slipped on the Landen Ibieta touchdown, and that gave Landen some space to operate. He then also juked the daylights out of a few people and housed it. So he has some special ability after the catch. Now, the issue is going to be getting him touches. So for me personally, I have a few wide receivers ranked ahead of him. I think one of the biggest losers yesterday, and you don't want to say too many winners and losers from a spring game, but the number 3 wide receiver battle had a really good day yesterday in terms of us feeling confident that somebody is going to step up behind BTJ and Malik, who both had very good games in my estimation. So I think Landen earned himself some playing time. It may not be against Florida State, though. It's probably going to be one of these situations where versus Grambling, he's going to get a few opportunities to make some stuff happen. So we go to another very generous super chat from you. Who do I feel won the day at corner and who impressed the most? Okay. So I think we touched on corner a little bit earlier. Let's start with the biggest winner, and that is LaTerrence Welch. And like, he was the biggest winner. Now, he was mostly working, backup reps. So he was going up against Chris Hilton. He was going up against, the non-Malik receivers. But he was still good. I mean, he was definitely better than the guys who played ahead of him. Now, the next step is going to be, how do you look after that? So, yeah. I would guess Terrence Welch. I think in the minds of everybody, he really stood out. But once again, it was a lot of second-team reps. And now, if he gets the opportunity to do some first-team reps, he's going to have an opportunity to win himself more playing time. But I think Denver Harris is going to get another shot to be good and be the guy. I also think he's going to get another chance to prove that, yesterday was just an anomaly. J.K. Johnson hasn't played as much as Denver Harris, but athletically, he does give you a lot. And then, of course, you still got Deuce Chestnut coming in. And I still think Zy Alexander has some ability. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you so much, Jason, for your generosity. I have a feeling we're going to get a few more $20 super chats. I have a feeling we're going to get at least one more $50 super chat. So there you go. Let's see here. Yeah, Jason travels a lot for his work. So, yeah, man, it means a lot that he still finds time to hang out with us. Roger's got the humor. Landen Ibieta, it's got he's sneaky fast. He's someone you'd want to date your daughter. Huh? Well, let's chat some Chris Hilton. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm kind of blown away by this. I appreciate your friendship. I really do. Yeah. So let me share a few thoughts here on Chris Hilton. This is just the case for some wide receivers. A lunch pail guy. I just love it. Oh, we're going to hear a lot of it during the NFL draft too. Oh, you hear it. It's gotten better, but in terms of it not being, man, he's got a good motor on him. But yeah, let's chat some Chris Hilton. Cheers to you. I'm starting to feel like this could be another Trey Palmer situation where for some reason Trey Palmer would get open and just to him, the balls would be inaccurately thrown. Okay. I don't know why that was always the case with Trey Palmer because Max would miss Trey a lot. It could be the absolute most open throw. And for some reason, the chemistry just wasn't there. You do see it from time to time, especially if you just focus in on a team. Okay. Sometimes it just seems like this for me. There's one wide receiver who's good, and the balls just are never accurately thrown to them. So is it them or is it the quarterback? I don't know. Chris Hilton got open. Like, Jaden missed him on the deep shot. The early RPO throw from Nuss was high. The back shoulder throw from Nuss could have been slightly better thrown. There was another ball down the sideline for Hilton that Nuss threw slightly out of bounds. There was some pressure in his face in the end zone. But yes, I still stand by this with Chris Hilton. You've got to keep your feet. You've got to be able to maintain balance, and I think he struggles with that. But obviously, straight line speed, it's really good, and he's got some real ability. It's just, especially in this situation, with the wide receiver room always being so deep at LSU, it's just tough. It's really, really, really tough because there's just so many great talents around you, and they're making plays and you're not. So it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. So Trey Palmer, as you saw, was a good wide receiver. He had a great year in Nebraska, and he was a good wide receiver at LSU. Caught that big Texas A&M touchdown in the last Orgeron game. Just made a lot of plays at LSU. I think Chris Hilton could eventually make plays at LSU, but the quarterbacks were sharp for the most part, but both of the quarterbacks, the only time they threw really inaccurately was to him. So it's an issue. Now, you still got to catch the ball. You just do. And the thing is, there wasn't like a whole lot of like just egregious drops, but they were drops. And I go back to this. At LSU, there's always someone behind you that deserves the reps if you drop. Okay? So there you go. But it did seem like this. The Hilton 2022 spring game equals the Lacy 2022 spring game. Almost to a T, right? 1 catch on 9 targets. It's crazy. Let's go to here. Good to see you, Chandler. Mason, what time is for you? 9:37 Central. Could it be because the chemistry isn't there with him because he has been out a lot with injury? I think that's part of it. But I'll share this with you as well. I think, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of a Patreon background here. Okay. And yeah, it was now Trey Palmer did catch the big touchdown before the half versus Texas A&M, but it was the great Jeray Jenkins. who caught the walk-off. And it wasn't a walk-off. It was close to a walk-off, but it was a walk-off. So there you go. But but honestly, Trey was so big in that game versus Texas A&M for us to win it. So big. Him and Dre, obviously. I do want to share something though, just to give you a little bit of a Patreon background. Okay. This was how I graded the wide receivers coming out of high school. Now, you could actually go back and look at how I viewed that really good wide receiver class coming out in 2020. So the 2021 wide receiver class. And Malik Neighbors was not my number one guy. Malik Neighbors was not my number one. So sometimes, you get it right. Sometimes you get it wrong. Jack Bech was my number one just on, my personal grading. Okay. And Jack was really good, but he wasn't Malik. And BTJ, of course, is still there. And he was also turned out to be very good. Now, coming out of high school, Shelton Sampson was my favorite receiver coming out. And then it was Kyle Parker, Kai, and then Jaylen Brown. Okay. Now, once again, I think all four of them are really good. But Kyle Parker just really stood out to me from the get-go. And he got better this past year, including a 23-catch game. And what made it even more impressive was there were two other four-star wide receivers on his team. So to demand targets in the offense, you've got to really earn them. Like, you've got to get open because there's other good players on his team, and rarely do you see a wide receiver room with 3-4 stars in it. Now, it does help that there's other talented receivers, so if you guard them, you get better matchups and so on. But man, the film for me was really good on him. So I'm trying not to overrate what I saw in the spring game and what I've seen and heard from practice, but they mic'd him up. They mic'd him up for a practice. Sometimes you just need to see the signs, and I think this could be a very real thing. So, keep an eye out for him. Also, what made it very interesting for me is LSU has not needed out-of-state receivers. It has been all Louisiana guys at wide receiver. So keep an eye out for number 12. I really do mean it. I think he has got some ability, and sometimes it's just meant to be, right? There are some players that I think LSU goes after, and they commit early. And I watch him, and sometimes I wonder, am I falling in love with this player because they are LSU and it is my favorite team and so on and so on. But two players that committed early that were once 3-star recruits both had good spring games yesterday. For me personally, as you guys know, I'm on fire for every kid that wants to sign and go to LSU. But sometimes I don't feel as highly about the prospect as, the recruiting ranking would indicate. But two guys that I thought were the real deal mother freaking Holyfield were Kyle Parker and Whit Weeks. They just really shined to me. They looked really good. And the recruiting rankings rose, in particular Whit Weeks, and they both had good outings. Once again, it's just a spring game. But those two guys, just wanted to point them out. That's why you got to watch PHL. You got to call me out when I'm right. You got to call me out when I'm wrong. Well, here's the thing. I'm not right yet. We won't know. Both those guys probably won't be year one starters, but year 2, year 3, look out. Look out. and they could both play a lot of special teams next year. So should be a lot of fun. But yeah, it's still an all-timer. And Dre and I actually was supposed to talk about that, but you'll see why when the interview gets posted, why I decided not to. How did Trey Holly look to me? Good. Good outing for Trey. There was an angle route early in the game that I would have loved to have seen get thrown to Trey. And in the film study tomorrow, you will see me dissect Trey Holly's touchdown pass. And it was actually a play that they tried to run with Garrett, and it was not executed properly. And then Jaden ran it, and we actually ran it right. And once again, as you guys know, I'm really high on Garrett Nussmeier, but it was a really well done play, Trey's touchdown. And yeah, he looked good. He looked good. Now, was it just this spectacular showing? No. But it was good. It was good. I think, Tony, the bigger thing was the run blocking wasn't where it was supposed to be. Okay. So, what does this mean for LSU's defense moving forward? A good thing. Okay. I don't think the run schemes you saw yesterday is what LSU's going to run versus Florida State. I just don't. Last year, LSU struggled pulling multiple guys from one side of the line of scrimmage to the other. Okay. That wasn't what we were known for. Okay. We were inside zone and duo. Okay. We weren't more so pull this guy, run counter. That was more what we had success with in 2021. And if there's one thing Pete did a good job of, it was that. We did a good job running those schemes, in particular Mississippi State and Florida. So, I think our run blocking isn't going to be what it's going to look like versus Florida State. I wouldn't panic too much about it. Plus, keep in mind, we didn't have Josh. We didn't have John. And also a guy that I have rated pretty highly is Caleb Jackson. I think Caleb's really good. I do. The injuries concern me, obviously being injured, his senior season. So if he does have that burst back, he's still a sub 11 100-meter guy. Watch out. But Trey, step in the right direction. Something else about the running backs from spring is because John Emery was held out yet again for whatever it is. These two running backs have had to practice a lot. So Trey Holly and Noah Kane probably weren't as fresh as backs in years past because, well, they had to practice more than most backs in years past. So, yeah, the running back room is 6 scholarship players deep, and 4 of those guys were never made available during the spring. So it becomes pretty difficult. Now, here's what we're going to do. Okay? In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. Okay? But if you super chat, we'll keep it moving. Okay? Let's go to Branson. Not sure John will be back and got a lot of heat for it. BK statement yesterday confirmed my thoughts. Okay. I There you go, Skipper. Pretzi Collection, PretziCollection.com. There you go. It kind of looked like a Pretzi Collection kind of thing. Some people just look at that diamond ring. Pretzi Collection. But it's not just diamonds, it's everything. PretziCollection.com. Okay, so will John Emery be back? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know everything there is to know about that situation. But what I can tell you is this, all right? It is constantly frustrating. Johnny Five, good to see you. It is constantly frustrating to have to worry about a non-injured player's availability. Okay. And this has just constantly been a thing with John. Okay. The hardest thing about being a college football player from time to time is sometimes not the actual playing aspect of it. It's the responsibility, you know? Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just making sure you're able to show up. So I'm hoping for the best. John's won us some football games, but we'll see. I want to share something with you. Okay. So there are some things, like when it comes to like sports media stuff, that I am super passionate about. Obviously LSU football, obviously SEC football. But I was sharing yesterday like how much I love national sports conversation as well. Okay. Not a hockey guy, even though I saw a pretty ridiculous hockey goal earlier. But I see this here that the number 2 overall pick odds have just had a major shift. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is in the chat right now, I want you to guess who is the favorite in the NFL draft to be selected number 2 overall. I'm very curious if you guys know. This is according to Caesar Sports. All right. Stroud, Richardson, Will Anderson, and Ryan T actually gets it correct. Will Levis is currently the favorite to being the number 2 overall pick. Now, notice what I said. It is not the odds of who the Texans will select at number 2. It is the odds of the number 2 overall pick. Okay. I'm just saying. God, this is crazy. Will Levis, number 2 overall. Let's go here. Really appreciate you, Sherry. Your card should be in at some point. I actually didn't do a card giveaway. I did. Yeah, it's so many. All right. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the quarterback pecking order. So you could see a type of class with the Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota year because everyone swore that both of them were going to be good and both of them weren't good. So every now and then there are a finite amount of quarterbacks that are actually elite. Okay. And I think the problem for a lot of these young quarterbacks is the best quarterbacks in the NFL are young. They're very young. Okay. What was it in the playoffs? Patrick Mahomes is one of the older quarterbacks with success this year, which is crazy to think about, right? He's 27. And for a while, the quarterback position was dominated by old guys. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Big Ben was still, slanging. It's just true. But a lot of those guys retired and aged out. And for any young quarterback, in particular going into the AFC, Josh Allen, Lamar, all these guys are younger. They have, all of them, at least 5 years of prime left, like 3 years minimum of elite prime. But yeah, I think for me, the only quarterback that I feel will succeed in this draft is Bryce Young. I would only select Bryce Young. Anthony Richardson, I do like. And if I had a team where he could sit for a year or two, I would love that situation. So, unless Jalen Carter is there at number 5, I think Seattle would be a really good spot for Anthony Richardson. Then, I think number 3 would be Stroud. I think Stroud's good. I think CJ Stroud has the potential to have I think he has the potential to have like a Phillip Rivers kind of career, which is really good, by the way. So yeah, I just think I see more like who's a good. I don't know who would be like a good middle tier pocket passer. Like I could see him being like a better version of Jay Cutler. I just don't think he is just spectacular. I just don't. And then once again, at number 4, I would probably still say Levis. He's got elite tools. He really does. I just don't see it. Then my number 5. I don't know. I think number 5 has changed quite a bit. But there's a piece of me that wants to say Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to have a better career than a lot of these guys. I think DTR, man, I would put him at number 4 ahead of Levis. I think DTR can really play. I do. But he would need to go somewhere where the offense can really cater to his strengths. Now, I know Branson Cat's going to bring up Jake Hayner, who had the second best S2 score. I like me some Jake Hayner too. I've stayed up late and watched a lot of Jake Hayner games. And then, there's going to be some people stooping for Stetson Bennett and a bunch of other deep cuts. Clayton Tune at Houston. And then once again, this guy's likely to go undrafted, but my deepest cut quarterback who is not on any board that I have watched is Tim DeMort. Tim DeMort. I'm going to bring him up again. Random name. Tim can spin, man. Tim can spin. Come on. Come on. Tim DeMorit. I just saw yesterday that Will Levis is white. Also likes mayonnaise in his coffee. You don't remember Will Levis? Well, actually, I remember you were at the Kentucky game in 2021. Big time film room guy. Yes, exactly. Let's pull him up. Let me see if anybody's even talking about Tim DeMorit. What I did was I pulled up a list of like just every quarterback on every radar. And Tim DeMorit popped up, and I was like, well, let me just see some film. I know he was in the Senior Bowl, so I just pulled up as many as I possibly could. Honestly, my favorite deep cut quarterback is freaking Fetty. What's up? I wouldn't worry about O-line depth. There's 5 more guys coming in the offseason, and Charles Turner wasn't playing. So we got some reinforcements coming in. I want you to see these numbers from Tim DeMorit, the proud Fordham Ram. 56 tutties, 10 INTs. Tim can spin. Y'all better watch out, bro. Tim can spin it. You want to get him on the show? It's going to be hard. It's going to be a busy next week. Let me see if he's getting any. All right. He's got 1,600 Instagram followers. Okay. There he is. Let's do this, Tim. Don't make me look bad. Watch out. Watch out. Oh, man. I'm in on that. Some Tim DeMorit discussions. I really need to pass out. I am on very little sleep. But the good news, you can, if you haven't already, go check out the film study we dropped earlier today. How about that? Appreciate all the love. Our top super chatter tonight, it's a great Jason Morgan. Shout out to him. And if you just happen to be doing abso-freaking-lutely right now, and you just want abso-freaking-lutely right now, nothing right now, what you need to do, okay, is go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Carter gets you a nice little bonus. That's underdogfantasy.com. Promo code Carter. Okay? Go sign up. Underdogfantasy.com. Promo code Carter. I really appreciate it. It is Power Hour. LSU, baby. Bam! Let's go, Jaden. Let's go, Nuss. In fact, the LSU 2 QB system is going to be so powerful next year that Jaden and Nuss are going to go 1 and 2 in the NFL draft. That's how great it's going to be. And the number 3 overall pick is going to be Malik Neighbors, if it's not Mason Smith. And tonight, we are doing some Cheez-It Puffs. Let's go.